We've got a lot of CEOs on the line today for small companies, mid-sized companies, and certainly large companies participating. Whether you're in a big company where you have a dedicated human resources group or a small company where you as the CEO play that role, that perspective is an important one. And we're really excited this afternoon to have Julie Catalano, who is the Director of Employee Relations at Vertex and the partner within Vertex Operations, to give a perspective on managing telework, but also the phased return to the office. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. And can everyone see my screen?
We can, thank you.
Great, perfect. It's always nice when that works, right? So for those of you who don't know Vertex, we're a global tax technology firm. We're headquartered in King of Prussia, and we have offices around the world. So really happy to be here today to share how we have reimagined what we're calling our next normal. And I'm also not able to advance my slides. Okay, Kevin and I figured it out together, great. So our COVID journey. So since March, we've shifted our thinking as an organization from really reacting and responding to one of restoring and reimagining. And that's where we are now. We're really reimagining what our future workforce will look like as we adapted and optimized. In April, we actually formed a cross-functional task force to attend to our employee and customer workplace needs, while really taking into account all of the applicable legal and compliance considerations. And our first task together as a cross-functional team was to survey our leaders. We opted to do a pretty quick survey just to get a temperature on how our leaders have been adjusting to what this current reality is. When COVID hit in March, we made the decision to go completely virtual across the board in all of our offices. So this was a really quick pivot for us, and we wanted to check in with folks to see how they were able to navigate that. So first we asked, how has working remotely changed how we operate? And we heard back that, hey, we're actually doing really well. People appreciated our frequent and focused communications. Having everyone virtual leveled that playing field. I'm sure you've all been in situations where half the rooms in half the meeting rather is in a room in one part of the country. Someone else is on the phone. Someone else is attending via video conference. Materials are not often shared in advance. And we had some bumps before all of this. Now we're all in a virtual playing field together, and we really have appreciated what that has offered us from that standpoint. We also heard a great appreciation for how our internal IT team really ensured that all of our technology tools and equipment needs were addressed right away. Our leaders also shared with us what it's been like leading in a virtual environment. We had some leaders who it was easier than others. They were used to having a virtual team, and they didn't really miss a beat when all of this happened in March. But we had other leaders that shared with us that, hey, it's been good, but I definitely have had some learning. And we've learned fast and we've pivoted quickly. We have heard some indicators of some need for additional tools for leaders on how to be most effective virtually, how to run meetings effective virtually, those kinds of things. In terms of team feedback on virtual experience, we asked our leaders to check in with their teams to see how they were doing. And what we heard was, wow, it really has overall been very positive. It's been a sink or swim type of experience, and we're swimming. Some of our extroverts shared they're missing some of the physical interaction of being in the office. And on the flip side, our introverts are saying, hey, you know what, I'm good. I'm really happy working from my home. Definitely some significant concerns around childcare, particularly as we move into the summer months and some summer camps are canceled. But overwhelmingly, a gratitude for Vertex and people's jobs, with some caution around burnout risk. So I'm sure we've all experienced in this virtual environment that the boundaries between our home and our home office really are so blurred, and it's really easy to get burned out in this type of environment if we're not careful and making sure our teams are taking the right wellness breaks. Then we asked everyone, what's the top concern about returning to the physical workplace? And I'm sure none of you would be surprised to hear that 80% of the people that we checked in with cited health and safety as their #1 concern when returning to our offices. People asked questions like, will I be forced to come back before I believe we're ready? Will I be safe? Will I have the option to remain remote if I can do my job satisfactorily? And these are all really fair questions, especially because the overwhelming sentiment at Vertex is that we didn't skip a beat and our business results have been stellar. So what we did is we actually took the learnings from the survey and also from industry experts that we've been consulting with, and we really created this 4-pronged grid of all the things we need to consider. And there's so much on this slide. I'm really going to focus on the people portion because my colleagues on the panel really addressed a lot of these other items. But when we think about this first question here, when to first open the workspace, you know, that's something that we have been tackling from a global standpoint, knowing that across the world, we have, as we saw on the charts of the prior presenters, you know, different countries and different areas of the world are at different points in this virus. And what we decided was that we would put a stake in the ground and say that none of our offices globally would begin to open their doors until October the 1st. What that October the 1st date does is, first of all, it buys some time to take care of some of the items in the other categories you see here, but it also sends the message that we are not in a crisis situation right now. We are actually thriving as we are, and it provides us with the opportunity to really be planful and regimented in terms of what our protocols will be moving forward. So we're doing things like asking the questions of our business leaders, if you were to choose which roles need to go back first, which ones would they be and why, right? So we do have a handful of roles who've had to go into the office at times during this time because there are things physically they need to do in the office that they can't do at home, such as we need someone to go in and open mail and scan some things on a large scanner that people don't have in their home. But apart from that, for the most part, there isn't anything that we need to accomplish as part of our business operations, even sales, that people haven't been able to do at home. We've been talking about things like who should come back first, and from an employee relations perspective, how are we addressing the fears of those returning back to work? How are we going to maintain connection during our phased return, right? So I talked before about how having everyone virtual has really evened the playing field. We're all sitting in the same virtual conference room. We're all using the same technology. And as we start to move back to a more hybrid approach, what does that what could the unintended consequence of that be? So we're talking about that as well as technology effectiveness in all work scenarios, and also how to respect and manage child and elder care challenges. As you can see in the other areas here that my colleagues on the panel talked about, there are a number of considerations from a workspace and building standpoint. Also, from a policy and protocol standpoint, there's a lot that we're working through, and we're putting all of this into our pandemic response plan. So moving forward, as we think about our march toward October and beyond, what we've identified from a task force perspective is that for us, this really is not about going back to the physical office space only or trying to get back to the way that things were. We've found that we've been so resilient and innovative that this has just really led us to think about how do we take Vertex forward into the future? How do we leverage what we've learned? How do we continue to appreciate that having everyone virtual has been a neutralizer for inclusion, and acknowledging and celebrating that we have challenged the orthodox, and this brought forward much needed innovation. So we are continuing to really look at how we work and what the opportunities are for our people, our culture, and our customers. So that was it for me. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share the HR perspective.